The Isocorp Dilemma by Nick,
Andre,
and Garbage. Isocorp is a technical support company which is known for their 24/7 service support for clients all around the world. They started off with just one office in Vancouver, which was the headquarters. Then, after rapid exponential growth, they globally expanded, constructing offices in Tianjin and also in Paris.
so when an issue arises, they have a procedural process that should take place accordingly. If a technical difficulty occurs between the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., the Vancouver office will be issued a call. Tianjin will receive any calls that are made outside of these hours, and Paris will be there to provide any technical support necessary, since they have a strong group of employees' expertise in that area. If a call has been made after hours, then an employee of Vancouver will be notified in order to ensure that the issue is resolved after the work is done. Usually, this process works very smoothly. However, recent event has compromised the general success of the procedure.
Isocorp's largest customer, HSBC Vancouver, was faced with a server crash at 11:30 p.m. When they called Vancouver for help, nobody engaged with them. Since it was after hours, the call went straight to Tianjin, where Mei Lin, the head of that office, decided not to follow protocol. Instead of advising the Canadian after-hours team, she notified Pierre, the head of the Paris office. Mei Lin and Pierre wanted to prove themselves that they could solve the problem all by themselves without requiring any assistance or approval from the Vancouver office. Neither of them notified Nick, the head of the Canadian after-hours team. The Paris and Tianjin offices failed to fix the servers on time, causing HSBC to be offline for 3 hours. This unfortunately ended up with HSBC customers being unable to use the ATMs. Normally, Nick would receive an automated message about an issue. However, his phone was dysfunctional due to a virus. He was livid that the other office's teams had not attempted to reach him via his other communication portals. Isocorp is now faced with a potential lawsuit from HSBC, along with a plethora of internal difficulties due to their global expansion.
Jack Nelson, the global manager of Isocorp, is based in Vancouver, the location of the headquarters. He believes that his location, as well as his background, might cause a perception that he favors the Vancouver office. Along with that, there appeared to be a breach of conflict between the offices. The French team believes that there is pay inequality since the Canadian team handled most of the large clients and received the most sufficient bonuses, even though the French and Chinese teams took care of work on these accounts. The Chinese team was compensated less than the French and English teams when it came to rate of pay and also in terms of vacation days. This led to a level of resentment and communication barriers between the offices. To top things off, Jack had detected the distribution of an offensive comic throughout the Vancouver office, one that depicted the international employees as incompetent, referring to the French and the Chinese offices. He feared that if the comic was leaked, the morale of all the offices will be detrimentally attacked. He has been tasked with depicting a plan to fix these issues.
One possible solution would be to enforce consequential actions. For example, suspending the employees that Jack thinks are to blame for this incident. However, this will likely lower morale and possibly upbring more resentment for the affected branches. A second possible solution is to hire more overseers in order to prevent a situation like this happening again. This might have a positive effect, but generally won't ease communication barriers or alleviate resentment. A third possible solution will be to implement more mandatory communication by maybe forcing the branches to work together on cases. Although this may ease communication barriers, it is unlikely that it will alleviate resentment.
So the first step Jack should take is to open up communication channels. One of the main functions of communication is to change behavior. If effective communication can be conveyed between offices, it can lead to them becoming more cooperative and respectful to one another. The solution to introduce this conversation will be to host a mandatory conference call for all employees to discuss their problems with each other. In order to decide the best communication channel, Jack must look at all the factors. The channel must have high synchronicity, since all parties must be able to listen, respectfully argue, and adhere to their future colleagues' points. It should also have a high social presence in order for the employees to emphasize with one another. High social acceptance is also necessary to ensure that employees are confident and willing to take part in this conference, rather than viewing it as a merely mandatory protocol. It should also have a fairly rich medium, since the amount of information and conversation will likely be immense. After reviewing all these factors, we believe that the most effective communication channel would be video conferencing over Zoom.
Conflict takes place when one party perceives that its interests are being detrimentally affected by another party. The French and Chinese offices have indulged in task conflict since they are agitated with issues regarding wage and lack of credit. However, the Canadian team is taking part in relationship conflict since they are focused on the perceptions that the international offices are incompetent. The Zoom video conference will be an excellent solution because it will allow all of the parties to address their difficulties while actively listening to the opposing views. Jack should format the meeting to give each office a chance to speak uninterrupted, with another period for questions and negotiations. It is important that Jack makes sure that the employees are compensated for their time during this meeting, so that they feel that their time is valuable and are not rushing to get it over with. He should also keep an open mind and do his best to find resolutions that benefit everybody, even if it means sacrificing a small portion of capital to make the compensation more equal for the international employees. This will help boost morale and in turn increase effective commitment throughout the French and Chinese employees. Once the Canadian team gets a chance to speak face-to-face with the others, it is likely that their perceptual biases will reduce. Currently, all the offices are in the blind area of the Johari window, meaning that others have perceptions about them that they are not aware of. The conference will help guide them to the open area, which will allow them to become more aware of their underlying beliefs, values, and perceptual biases. Once self-awareness has been improved, then Canada can effectively decrease the discrimination. This conference will be a cooperative field to promote negotiations between the branches. Jack can institute goals for the company, such as incentivizing time limits for re-enabling servers after a crash. Each company will present their needs to succumb to these goals. For example, France and China might ask for equal credit for the accounts that they are worked on together. Canada must heed to their demands, however, in exchange, they might ask that France and China must take equal blame for potential failures involved with these accounts. Once everyone has come to a collective agreement, communication will become easier and resentment will diminish over time, since they will have a clear mutual understanding of the task and interdependence.
Implementing the solution will require Jack to get in touch with the heads of each branch. He must find a time that will satisfy everybody, most likely during working hours. He will also need to ensure that he has the higher-ups manage the calls during the meeting, in case there is some type of emergency like the one that just occurred. Once a date and time has been set, Jack must create a Zoom call with all the employees and facilitate some conversation starters in order to get everybody going. He must stay attentive during this conference to help make financial and relation-based actions adhering to the conversations by the employees. It is also important that he monitors each branch more extensively for a while after the conference to document the progress that they make into becoming as cooperative as they were before the global expansion occurred. If he can manage all of that, then the long-term success of ISOCorp will be much greater than it ever was before.
So when it comes to the AHBC case, it appears that multiple parties are at fault. Million and Pierre failed to reach a time limit since they refused to contact Canada. However, Nick is also to blame. Instead of blaming external factors, he failed to acknowledge his own personal mistakes. When he found out his phone is corrupted, he should have switched his contact details temporarily in case of an emergency such as this one. Normally, we believe that punishment would be easily justified for these actions. However, since Jack needs to focus on building positive communication and decreasing resentment, it is crucial that he does not inflict punishment on these individuals. Not only will negative consequences decrease their morale, it will also lead to more anguish between offices. Right now, Jack's primary goal should be conflict resolution, not consequential actions.
The Zoom conference will be the start of a new chapter for ISOCorp. With more trust and reliability between the offices, they will become more interdependent of each other and will be more committed to working together, as well as reach higher levels of effective commitment to ISOCorp as a whole. They will produce higher performance, but most importantly, they will develop a mutual respect and understanding for each other. Thank you for listening.